Welcome back, Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. We've been having a lot of fun speculating about the hidden villain in Hawkeye. We put out a video theorizing that it could be Kate's parents, or that her dad is alive, that Sharon Carter's a Skrull and needs the watch, or that it's actually Kang trying to recover a piece of time travel tech. Now, all of those theories are really fun, but the one that actually seems the most likely is that it's going to be the return of the Kingpin, played by Vincent D'Onofrio. Now, if you haven't seen the show Daredevil, then you're missing out. Kingpin is one of the greatest villains in the MCU. He's a ruthless gangster, but truly believes that he's acting in the city's best interest to rebuild it after the Battle of New York. And we think that he's in this show because, well, this hand looks like his, and he's prominently wearing cufflinks just like Fisk.
That's why I still wear these. To remind myself that I'm not cruel for the sake of cruelty. That I'm not my father.
And in the comics, Fisk was also in charge of the Tracksuit Mafia and helped to raise Maya Lopez after her dad passed away. So there's too many connections to ignore, and really there's nothing left to say on it. But wait. There is something else. HydraBob88 on Twitter sent me a theory that is so perfect, so elegant, that I think it not only explains the mystery in Hawkeye, but is a clear signpost about where the MCU is headed from here. Now, the theory revolves around Avengers Tower. Obviously, it started off as Stark Tower as a symbol of his megalomania, but then it became a symbol of Loki's megalomania in the Avengers, as it became ground zero for the Chitauri invasion. Afterwards, all the letters were knocked off, leaving only an A, symbolizing that Tony had to shed his ego and become part of a team, the Avengers. After Age of Ultron, the team moved to a more secure facility upstate, probably to prevent supervillains from putting civilian lives at risk, which makes sense. They originally placed their headquarters in Manhattan to protect the city from another invasion, but then moved it upstate after Ultron, because Age of Ultron was a crisis of the Avengers' own making, showing that they could be a danger to the people around them. And it's a good thing too, because imagine if Thanos had attacked Manhattan like this. So then in Spider-Man Homecoming, we hear that Tony is actually selling Avengers Tower.
Tony sold Avengers Tower. We're relocating to a new facility upstate where hopefully the cell service is much worse.
But they never say to whom. In Far From Home, we see that it's been remodeled, adding an atrium in the middle, but we don't see the top of it. Now myself, and really the rest of the internet, we speculated that this would be the new home of the Fantastic Four when they join the MCU. There's even this under construction sign that reads, 1, 2, 3, 4, we can't wait to show you what's next, meaning Phase 4, and maybe the Fantastic Four. But the genius of HydraBob's theory is that Tony sold the tower to Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. Or maybe he just ended up owning it after buying it from someone else who Tony originally sold it to. So in the comics, Fisk Tower is a staple of the Manhattan skyline. It's a symbol of Wilson Fisk's control over the underworld and the city. See, unlike the common muggers that Spider-Man beats up in alleys, Fisk does not hide in the shadows. He sits high above everyone, fully visible, flaunting his control of New York. Side note, in the Spider-Man PlayStation game, Fisk Tower is located where the Time Warner building is in real life. Now that's funny because Time Warner owns DC Comics, so it's like they're saying that DC is Spider-Man's main competition and they're evil. In fact, this same building has been featured as an in-joke in Warner Brothers animated shows like Animaniacs and the Venture Brothers. Now, in the MCU, Fisk has gone to jail twice. In fact, the last time we saw him, he was being arrested. But there's no reason to think that he couldn't have beaten the charge and rebuilt his criminal empire once again. Now, like I said before, when we first saw Fisk, he was trying to repair the damage caused by the Chitauri. In fact, he was working with other crooks, including a secret ninja cult, to accomplish his goals. He was brought down twice by Daredevil. And it's also heavily rumored that Matt Murdock will appear in Spider-Man No Way Home, which is another reason I think we're very likely to see the return of Wilson Fisk very soon. Fisk has never liked superpowered people. He saw the Battle of New York as simply destructive. Even before Matt Murdock brought him down, he saw people in costumes as petty cartoon characters who need to be stopped. So it would interest him in controlling the Avengers' old home to unlock any secrets that they kept hidden away in there. So back to the watch. We know that it was recovered from the wreckage of the Avengers compound. Now the theory goes that this is a piece of Stark tech, but it doesn't necessarily control drones or nanotech. It has a key to it, unlocking a vault in Fisk Tower. But wait,
Happy Hogan already packed up Tony's stuff in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yes, he did.
Okay, I don't have time for ATM robberies or the thoughtful notes you leave behind. I have moving day to worry about. Everything's got to be out of here by next week.
And it wouldn't make sense for Tony to leave something behind in a building that he no longer owns. But there's a few possibilities here. As we saw in Homecoming, Happy wasn't running the tightest ship. He sent an unmanned plane to deliver extremely valuable tech. He could have even missed something that was on the manifest, something that's still hidden inside the tower. It's also possible that Tony stored something in the building that couldn't be moved, something that was better off not being moved. Or maybe the building itself has certain hidden tech that would always lie dormant unless Tony used his watch to activate it. Tony was such a control freak that it would make total sense for him to hold on to this power over his building. Now, we've got a few specific theories on what the watch is hiding that I'll talk about in a minute, but first, I want to explain why Fisk owning Avengers Tower is perfect, symbolically, for the next phase of the MCU. Now, it's becoming pretty obvious that the MCU is putting together not one, but two different Avengers teams. The first is the Young Avengers. I mean, just look at the face Kevin Feige made when Haley Steinfeld was asked about the team. Several members of the Young Avengers have already been introduced to the MCU with more on the way, and it makes sense. The old team is gone, and they're passing the baton to the next generation, and the kids will have to fix their parents' mistakes, specifically their time-traveling shenanigans that unleashed Kang on the multiverse.
If you mess with time, it tends to mess back.
But what about the other Avengers team? I'm talking about the Dark Avengers, or maybe they'll be called the Thunderbolts. In the comics, after the Skrulls nearly conquered Earth, S.H.I.E.L.D. was reorganized and put under the control of Norman Osborn. He proceeded to form his own team of Avengers, who were mostly villains disguised as heroes. This was part of the Dark Reign event of the comics, when the villains were in control of events, after the heroes were divided following Civil War. Sound familiar? In the MCU, most of the OG heroes are dead, retired, or learning how to be evil from the most evil book in existence. Right now, there are no Avengers. Remember, in Far From Home, Fury's actively trying to recruit more heroes.
There's a void in this world for someone like you.
Okay, people, no Avengers coming. We're good to go.
So to fill this void, Val has been operating as a kind of bizarro Nick Fury, recruiting anti-heroes. She approached John Walker,
picking up the phone when I call you.
Yelena Belova,
Maybe you'd like a shot at the man responsible for your sister's death.
Next, she might recruit Emil Blonsky after we saw his cameo in Shang-Chi. The list might also include Zemo because, well, I mean, he's the MCU's Batman at this point. And there's also Ghost, Justin Hammer, maybe even Quentin Beck. The point is, evil is on the rise across the MCU. The Ten Rings are resurgent, Sharon Carter is the power broker, heroes have become villains, and even Spider-Man looks like he's a murderer. So it makes perfect sense that Avengers Tower, the symbol of good, has been corrupted by Wilson Fisk, the symbol of evil. He might even offer up the tower as a headquarters for the new team of these Dark Avengers. This would really cement the idea that the villains are now in the driver's seat with no one on Earth to stand in their way. And the key to all this is that watch and what secrets it unlocks in Stark Tower. So let's run through a few specific possibilities, and I also want to hear your theories down in the comments. Number one, maybe the entire tower is a weapon or some kind of shield. Since the tower was the location of the first attack, Tony could have remade it into a giant laser or some kind of force field to shield the city from the next attack. A suit of armor around New York, if you will.
What if next time aliens roll up to the club, and they will, they couldn't get past the bouncer?
Or number two, there's just some really good Stark tech in this vault. Happy could have left behind a cache of Tony's arc reactors. Or maybe Tony retained ownership of the building's basement where all this tech is stored. After all, he did keep all of his suits in his LA mansion's basement. The Kingpin would definitely see value in having his own security forces wearing Iron Man suits. Maybe he would even try to make them into a privatized police force under his control. Imagine the Kingpin controlling his own Iron Legion with instructions to arrest all of his competitors but leave his interests alone. And here's option number three, artificial intelligence. Tony didn't start working on AI in Age of Ultron. He actually started in college. This newspaper article from the montage in Iron Man 1 says that he's developed two different AIs. One was Jarvis and presumably the other was Ultron. We see in Age of Ultron that he has multiple AIs to choose from, including Jocasta, who was an android in the comics. Fisk would see the value in having his own AI that's as powerful as Edith or Jarvis, who can control the world's nuclear codes or an army of drones from space. Or this AI could be Tony Stark himself. In the comics, after Tony dies, he lives on as a hologram to mentor young Riri Williams, who has her own show coming out on Disney+. So maybe, in the MCU, Tony created backups of his own brainwaves, just in case the Avengers needed him in the event of his death. His appearance as a hologram in Endgame could be foreshadowing this. But I think there's a much more basic reason that Fisk wants this watch. He's doing this for Vanessa. Vanessa is his primary concern in the Daredevil TV show.
You in a court of law. You the right to an attorney. You are my heart. You're everything.
And in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Kingpin is trying to cross into other dimensions to bring back Vanessa after she died in his universe. So maybe in the MCU, Vanessa's become sick and only this Stark tech can save her. And finally, the series opens with the Avengers Tower playing a prominent role in the life of Kate Bishop. So I think that ending the show with the tower being at the center of the plot makes perfect sense. Clint has even reminded us that the Avengers don't own it anymore.
Let me guess, we're going to your safe house? Is it an Avengers Tower?
No. Tony sold that.
But what do you think? Do you have your own theories about the watch or Stark Tower? Please let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.